Nigerian army to leverage on technology for improved results in ongoing internal security operations.
We're in the digital age now, so you cannot afford to be left behind. Even at your own level, it's important you imbibe that culture.
And Good Morning Nigeria today discusses renewed attacks on security personnel.
Security personnel represent the face of law enforcement in Nigeria and elsewhere, with powers to ensure that law and order prevails at all times. Now, their main role is to protect all citizens and ensure that people are free to go about their lawful activities without fear of molestation, harassment, or intimidation. They are accorded respect and considered by the citizens and government.
That's right, Juma. Now, the power of law enforcement agencies to investigate, arrest, and prosecute suspected lawbreakers and other criminals is one that is firmly enshrined in the Constitution as well as in various pieces of legislation passed by Parliament. Primarily, law enforcement agencies are mandated to ensure that there is no chaos or anarchy in any part of the country at all times, while disagreements between individuals and groups are resolved through lawful means.
Now, the Nigerian police force is the primary domestic law enforcement agency in the country, which alongside other agencies such as the Department of State Services, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Immigration Service, Nigeria Correctional Service, and the Nigerian Customs, among others. The Nigerian Armed Forces, who are primarily saddled with the nation's territorial integrity, has in recent years been actively involved in domestic security operations due to the rise in insecurity in the country.
Now, the security challenges are numerous and have resulted in large-scale attacks, violence, loss of life and property. Now, as a result of terrorism, insurgency, banditry, communal, ethnic and religious clashes, security personnel have been on their feet at all times, fighting hard to restore normalcy. Many say they have become so overstretched and poorly mobilized to adequately deal with the plethora of security challenges.
And Kisley, apart from being overstretched, there are questions around the numbers of security personnel in the country, as well as their training, equipping and deployment. They are also said to be inadequate remunerated, while their welfare and motivation needs to be urgently looked into. In addition to these, they are said to be grappling with inadequate or obsolete equipment that limit their capacity to be able to respond to security threats that are unconventional.
Now, in the face of all these mounting challenges, the security agencies have consistently faced threats not only to their operations but to the lives of their personnel. In recent times, security personnel have come under renewed attacks by criminal groups and gangs who have become so audacious to touch the symbol of law enforcement. Now, these attacks are not altogether new, but the dimensions, ferocity and recurrence have become a major source of concern to not only the security agencies, but society at large.
And so worrisome is Nigerians would recall recent incidences of attacks on security personnel, such as the ambush in Shiroro, Niger State, where about 23 personnel were killed, including Air Force officers who died in a helicopter crash after responding to rescue victims of the attack. Again, there was the gruesome and barbaric murder of police DPO Bako Agbashim in Ahioda, River State by criminals shortly after 8 security personnel were murdered and set ablaze in Iheme, Mbano, Imo State during an ambush when they also responded to a distress call.
Now, there are many other incidents, certainly too numerous to recount in recent years. And the most worrisome part of this sad occurrence is that the affected personnel were killed in the line of duty, trying to protect ordinary citizens, as you and I, according to their oath of duty. Now, these attacks do not only impact on the affected personnel and their families, but on the whole structure of law enforcement and entire society. Why are these attacks persistent? and how can they be curtailed?
It is also important to ask what are the consequences for attacking security personnel. Are there factors that make these attacks more audacious and brutal? What role should citizens play in assisting security agencies to foil such attacks that appear to be well planned and executed? These questions and more we intend to find answers to as we examine the renewed attacks on security personnel in the country. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. I am Jumma Yusuf. It is another beautiful Monday morning and we are back for an eventful week.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to the program, reaching you as always from our headquarters studios in the nation's capital of Abuja. As the program unfolds, we'll take the highlights of the morning news that will be coming up shortly. We'll also have business and thereafter newspaper review. So here now is Comfort Amodu, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jumai. Good morning, Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has directed security agencies to rescue the remaining female students of the Federal University Gusau, Zamfara State, who were recently abducted by terrorists. Condemning the reprehensible acts, the president says there's no moral justification for such heinous crimes against innocent victims whose only offense was their pursuit of quality education. A statement from Ajurin Gilali, special advisor to the president on media publicity, says while the president wholeheartedly commiserates with all the families directly impacted by the said incident, he affirms that his administration has a solemn duty to protect every Nigerian citizen, and in line with this commitment assures the families of the abducted students that no effort will be spared in ensuring their safe return. And the president also pledges that the federal government is determined to ensure that educational institutions remain sanctuaries of knowledge, growth and opportunity and totally free from the menacing acts of terrorists. The Nigerian Army is leveraging on the technological advancements to further improve its ongoing internal security operations. This came to bear at the end of a 2 weeks leadership training course organized by the Nigerian Army Resource Center in Abuja, and the course also seeks to enhance operational efficiency by bridging gaps between senior and junior cadre officers during operations.
We're in the digital age now, so you cannot afford to be left behind, even at your own level. It's important you imbibe that culture, because even the critical thinking skills that you have gone through, including aspects of emotional intelligence and the rest, requires you to do a lot, and the use of computers is critical.
It is because of the gap observed in leadership situation amongst the senior SEALs, junior officers and soldiers. That's why the center was challenged to run the program.
Also on the news, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has seized more than 4 tons of illicit and controlled drugs, including consignments of nitrous oxide, popularly known as laughing gas, skunk codeine, syrup, methamphetamine, and tramadol during interdiction operations in Lagos, Kogi, FCT, Jigawa, Kaduna, Sokoto, and kilograms loaded in 2 Toyota Sienna buses were on Friday 22nd of September intercepted by the NDLE operatives along Okene Lokoja Abuja Expressway. 2 suspects, Onyebuchi Ikbazu and Kenneth Igwe, who were taking the consignments to the nation's Federal Capital Territory for distribution, have been arrested and taken into custody. One of the Toyota Sienna buses was conveying 99 cartons containing 594 cylinders weighing 1,267.2 kilograms, and the second bus was conveying 100 cartons of the substance with 600 cylinders weighing 1,280 kilograms. A 48-year-old woman, Ugo Eluba, was also arrested in Abuja in follow-up operations after 2,400 ampoules of pentazocine injection and 100,000 tablets of Exol 5 intercepted in Kogi State were traced to her. In the FCT, the operatives intercepted 977 kilograms of skunk in a trailer bearing cartons of Maggi, and the skunk consignment was loaded into the truck at Ikpele Junction in Ondo State. Also, 959 kilograms of the substance were meant for distribution in Sokoto State. The rest was to be dropped at Gwagwalada. Two suspects, Awal Mohammed and Abdullahi Abubakar, have been arrested in connection with the seizure, while other suspects, Mutari Abdul Aziz and Ayuba Madaki, were also arrested at Zuba area of the FCT. Bauchi State Police Command has arrested two suspects for allegedly killing two casual workers in Gamawa Local Government Council of the state.
A blood sample that was found in the suspect house to be taken to laboratory in Lagos for further investigation, where to ascertain that the blood that was being alleged, is it the blood of a human being, or where the suspect was saying that it's not the blood of a human being, it's the blood of an animal. So investigation is still ongoing.
National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons says it will strengthen partnership with state governments to address humanitarian crises across the country. Federal Commissioner of the Commission, Aliu Tijani Ahmed, stated this during an engagement with Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasser State.
To assure the President that by the grace of God, I will do everything humanly possible for the success of the office. I will ensure I protect the image of this country within and outside the country.
In another news, the Prelate Methodist Church, Nigeria, His Eminence Oliver Ali Abba, has charged newly installed Knights of the Methodist Church to dedicate their talents and resources towards achieving a better society for humanity. He made the charge at the occasion of recognition of service and awards of merit to outstanding individuals at the Methodist Cathedral of Unity, Abuja.
Very humbled that I have been called upon to serve. Very humbled, and it's something I do not take for granted.
God, who has called them to himself, will equip them. He will give them strength and he will give them courage to be able to live up to expectation.
That's the news for now. Jumai and Kingsley are still here for more on Good Morning Nigeria, and that will be after this break.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman, Interministerial Committee on Nigeria's 63rd Independence Anniversary, Senator George Akume, CON, invites all members of the Interministerial Committee, civil society organizations, stakeholders in the media industry and interested members of the public to the World Press Conference to mark the celebration scheduled to hold as follows. Date, Monday, 25th September 2023. Venue, National Press Center, Radio House, Area 10, Garki, Abuja. Time, 11 a.m. Mohammed Idris, FNIPR, Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation and Chairman, Media and Publicity Subcommittee. Announcer.
It all began with 2G. People could call, send text, and connect with loved ones in an instant. Then, like magic, 3G appeared. Suddenly the world was at your fingertips.
You're welcome back. And available data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, shows that Nigeria's trade with Africa up 40.8% to 1.84 trillion naira in the first half of 2023. Now details with Alika Opanachi Arua.
Latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics revealed that Nigeria's trade with the rest of African countries increased by 40.8% year-on-year in the first half of 2023 to 1.839 trillion naira from 1.306 trillion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2022. This represents a reversal in the declining trend of the nation's intra-African trade over the same period since 2020 in terms of value. The NBS data on Nigeria's external trade with the rest of Africa also indicates that the intra-African trade is gaining more ground against total foreign trade recorded by the country in the past 3 years. In another development, Kaspersky disclosed that attack on industrial control system computers grew in Africa in the first half of 2023. Malware was detected and blocked on 32.6% of industrial computers in Nigeria, 34.5% in Kenya, and 29.1% in South Africa. According to the cybersecurity firm, the most significant and targeted threats detected on ICS computers in selected countries of Africa showed overall attacks were detected on 40.3% of ICS computers, making Africa the most attacked region. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
Many thanks, Alika, for the business news package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okoli, is in the studio. Good morning.
Jumai, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm fine.
And good morning, Kingsley.
Yeah, good morning, Chukwudi. Hope you had a pleasant weekend.
I did, and you?
Very well, thank you.
Well, it was a pleasant weekend, and I'm sure he watched the match yesterday between Man City and
no, the real match yesterday was between Tottenham and Arsenal.
And Arsenal.
The first EPL match of the season, if you ask me.
I didn't get to watch that,
Yeah.
actually. Well, his team wasn't playing, so he's not really interested in what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't have a
No, his team played.
You didn't have a clear idea of what the schedules were.
I missed yesterday because I just needed to rest. I needed to sleep. So it was around 7:20, and I remembered, the match is playing, and I'll switch over, and I was watching Man City. And, well, at that time, they were 2 up, but I didn't get to watch the rest. NEPA did what they did. Night when just went off.
Well, is that a general problem? I didn't run about 2 o'clock or so. I think the lights just went off.
Yes.
Every time you keep on hearing about a great collapse.
Yes.
And I say, this in a candle. Oh, come on, guys.
Since the grid collapse, the supply has not stabilized.
They seem still on the journey to.
It's like they are rationing.
To hit,
Yes. So let's quickly begin with the newspaper review this morning. We'll begin with the Blueprint newspaper, and just below the masthead, fails subsidy removal after 21-day ultimatum. NLC meets on next line of action. Fails subsidy removal after 21-day ultimatum. NLC meets on next line of action. You find the details on page 5. NEF partners FCTA on security master plan. Details on page 8. Taraba to pay teachers core member 85,000 naira allowance. Details on page 5. Home and abroad, Tinubu's Nigeria is taking its rightful place. That's coming from the Minister of Information, Malagi. And the headlines in the Blueprint newspaper: Zamfara varsity kidnap. Amid mounting pressure, Tinubu orders security agencies to rescue students with riders. Nigeria needs new strategies to combat terrorism. That's coming from Ariwa Consultative Forum. Time is of essence. Act now. Northern Coalition tells federal government. We are on the trail of abductors. Police assure. You find all the details on page 6. And just below the picture story, Kano. Don't allow politicians throw North into chaos. Clerics urge Tinubu. Details on page 5. UBA rolls out 6 billion SMEs financing solutions. Details on page 25. Zamfara Governor Dauda bans illegal mining over insecurity. You find all the details on page 9. And the picture story you see there, firefighters trying to put out the fire that gutted mega plastic company at Ilepeju, Lagos State on Saturday, while some sympathizers are watching. Let's quickly go to the Punch newspaper, and above the masthead, NMPCL swaps 2.6 trillion crude for refined products. You find the details on page 4. Outrage as bandits hold 21 Zamfara varsity female students. Details on page 14. 40 million Nigerian children from poor families as attributed to the World Bank. And below the masthead, CBN defaults on payment to banks, dollar nears 1,000 naira. With riders, CBN banks to begin new negotiations over restructured dollar debts. Travelers' parents groan as banks ratio for forex. BDC operators advise FG. And just at the bottom plate of the Punch newspaper, pay 2022 withheld salaries as tells FG. That's on page 7. NDLEA intercepts 4,000 kilograms of illicit drugs, arrest 12 suspects. Details on page 4 and 5. Boko Haram insurgents kill 10 Borno farmers, abduct 9. Details on page 8. And the picture story you see there, members of the Northeast Development Commission during the donation of diphtheria prevention materials to the Yobe State government in Damaturu, Yobe State. Kinsley?
All right, some of the headlines you read are also on the front pages of both the Vanguard and Leadership. So I'll just choose some of the headlines from Vanguard now. Above the nameplate, Nnamdi Kanu's attorney, Bruce Fein, renews call for his release. Wike revokes 22 allocations, gives 21 embassies and 168 others 3-month grace. Onga, Tinubu will revamp Nigeria's economy, boost energy sector. That's according to Rone, FL Energy boss. NLC battles OPS, that's organized private sector, overstand on planned nationwide strike. NLC alleges plots to sabotage struggle on palliatives. Economy can't afford nationwide strike, OPS insists. Urges federal government and NLC to avert industrial action by all means. Asks federal government to demonstrate good faith in keeping promises. Pro-labor CSOs urge NLC to declare indefinite strike. Pledge to support NLC in fighting for workers and others. NG Eagle, experts fault NCAA's transfer of AOC, that's Air Operators License Certificate, to new owners. Manufacturers incur heavy losses as forex crisis and inflation bite harder. From the Leadership newspaper, that's below the nameplate, says rising inflation forces estate developers to renegotiate projects. Rumpus in civil service over new tenure system. Despite warning, states caught unprepared for flood. And you can see the infographics there on the front page illustrating what the issues are. Tribunal decides someone will lose faith today. Chukudi.
Thank you, Kingsley. NLC battles OPS, that's the organized private sector, over stand, I think that should be stance, on planned nationwide strike. Now, the thing is, please, first of all, we must say that this is an investigation by the Vanguard, so there's no attribution. But just in case what they say is correct, and because we're involved, the point is there should be no brickbats in this matter. NLC is actually accusing the organized private sector of being used by government, to thwart, the strike, the plan, so that they get some of their matters redressed. The government, if you ask me, has a right to lobby whoever they need to lobby to make this strike not happen, as long as the means are legitimate. But NLC has a rather, funny one here. They said, why would the organized private sector wait for government to raise salaries, the monuments, before they usually join in? Why would they not on their own do this? That's a smart question. But at the end of the day, what we are saying is that a strike is not going to be the best for us. No. And while we plead that caution still stays the word, I still think that sincerity on the part of those negotiating would go a long way. There's a way you can explain to people that certain things cannot be afforded by you, and they give you a listening ear. So if the NLC are suspecting that government is not coming out clean on this matter, or straightforward on this matter, that would be, I'm not saying that's exactly what has happened. We're just throwing in words of caution into it.
Speculations.
You know. So they say that that's NLC, even the public sector raising wages is sending shivers into their spines, down their spines, that should be, and they are saying NLC should not take action. So they are now accusing one another, and then
back and forth.
back and forth. You would begin to say, if they are divided, that's going to be a problem for argumentation, and then getting what should be a similar objective achieved by them. Well, as we say, caution, dialogue would always save the day. Nigeria is in a bad place at the moment. It's not easy for government. Neither is it easy for the citizenry. So let us all mutually accept that we are in deep waters and work on getting out of that. The Minister of Works, that's David Umahi, I told Kingsley the other day that I'm becoming more and more interested in the man after listening to him. He's insisting that there is no going back on the construction of concrete roads. He says that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has already given his approval.
Yeah, he has.
Yes. And he's urging construction companies nationwide to learn from the ingenuity of Sematech Nigeria Limited. I hope we're not advertising them. He says Sematech is an indigenous Nigerian company that is handling a 28.6 kilometer stretch from Udukbani to Itu in the ongoing dualization of the Udukbani-Itu-Ikot-Ekpene road. Now, the interest I have here is that a Nigerian company is being quoted in terms of this brand of road, which the minister is convinced
and insisting that
yes,
must have.
So we can do it. We can do it. It's not a Julius Berger thing now. It's not Solel Bonnet. It's not Dumez. I don't know whether Dumez is still in existence. We can do it. And just the other day, we were saying that we should not do cheap things that are going to hurt us in the long run. You understand?
Yes.
So let us insist on quality.
Quality that will stand the test of time.
Exactly. Quality that will stand the test of time. At the end of the day, we are going to be the ones to benefit from it. Yes. Lastly, from my side, please, hike in fees will force students out of school. The Joint Action Front, JF, is warning that there are instances where the hike is up to 800%.
Yes.
You don't know what to believe in these matters. The woman selling the fowl holds the two wings and tells you, how can you price this fowl for just 5 naira? Then the person selling squeezes the fowl, compacts it, and says, this is too much for 5 naira. So it goes on and on, But we have continued to say here that there is you can't do too much for education and agriculture. So let that be at the back of our mind. I think that some of the students are being unrealistic. The kind of fees they're insisting on still cannot hold anymore. But whoever is charging more should bear it in mind that Nigeria is not too favorable to any of us.
Yes.
And
it's not just increasing the fees. It must provide enabling environment for learning too at the same time.
That's a very important
all the facilities
factor
on ground. Play down on that.
Yes.
When you increase the money, then the students should be have access to Wi-Fi, to computers, to do so many things.
You don't read just anywhere.
No.
The environment has to be conducive.
It has to be conducive.
Apart from not being distracted by certain things that should not bother us in this century.
Exactly. And
I think I want to respond to the point that Chukwudi was making about the Minister of Works, Engineer Dave Umahi, former governor of Ebonyi State, and spent a couple of days in the Senate before he was tapped by the president to become Minister of Works. He's quite enthusiastic about what he intends to do and insisted on the rigid pavement as an alternative to asphalted highways. In Lagos at the weekend, he was reported to have addressed the media, and that's the point of interest for me, and said that a new superhighway will be constructed from Lagos to Abuja, 400 and something kilometers, passing through 8 states before it gets to Abuja. And it will be all rigid pavement, and that is going to take 4 years. I found that pretty interesting. Interesting in the sense that, well, I don't know whether the route has been mapped out in the first instance, or whether it's a pre-existing contract that is going to dust up and say, now rigid pavement contractors get on there and then get the work done. In other words, you have to follow the due process for approving such a project. And
it's a big one.
It's a big one, and it cannot be one contractor. Well, it says it will be the private sector that will handle it, and they're going to have tolls at different locations. Fair point, but then you still have to pre-qualify those contractors, who will handle it. It will not be the government's business, but it is government property at the end of the day, because they will build, operate, and then transfer eventually to government. But I think that it's somewhat ambitious to declare that it's going to take 4 years. It might, in the past, when we were less litigious, you might have said yes, this could take about that length of time. So, where is the root of this road? Right of way, compensation. So by the time you are dealing with those things, you will see frustration mounting. It's a good idea, but I think that one of the things that the Minister of Works could also fast track, even while that is on, because it's not going to cost government anything, and the period gets more than 4 years, fair enough, but there are existing routes that could be immediately reconstructed, revamped. Any person, if you're going, for instance, I mean, in the past, you could do Lagos to Benin in 3 hours. And then from Benin to Abuja, 4.5 hours, door to door.
And those days are gone.
Yeah, those days are gone, and that's because of the state of the roads. The contractors have been, I don't know. That's the job has lingered for so long. And the Abuja Kaduna Art section of it was awarded sometime in 2006 or thereabout. Not much progress that we are hearing. We go from Lokoja to Okene, nightmare. From Okene to Auchi, nightmare. You get, there are fade portions, impassable during the rainy season. I think those are the things that motorists would like to see in the meantime. Get the contractors to fix one. Let them, those who have not done 80% of the job, as they said, let them revert now to the rigid pavement and get those jobs. Focus on those ones almost immediately.
So that's going to involve some renegotiation.
Well,
as long as the outcome will be good and better for Nigerians. Yeah, exactly.
If it's going to be good
but
for us.
You have to think about the sources of the critical raw materials that you need for rigid pavement. Cement, critical. Your rods, iron rods, that's for the reinforcement. And of course, you can always blast your rocks and then get your chippings, that's what we call granite, to use for that particular purpose. But it will create a lot of jobs, no question about that. The quick ones, focus on those
labor
ones.
and all that. Yes.
Focus on those. And then the FCT minister, of course.
Revocation?
Yes, revocation of allocations. We talked about it. The grounds for revocation now are lack of development of plots that have been allocated. Again, let me just throw this in. Sometimes there might be litigation over a piece of property. So if there is litigation, what do? You're not going to go ahead to develop a property because there is a covenant in the grant. You develop it and then the rule applies. The quid plantator solo said it applies. But it's a good thing that you are trying to ginger people to do all of this, but the economy is also not very friendly.
Not friendly.
So where are you going to get the financing from?
Yes, some of the lands that were
let's mortgage, for instance. Where would you get a mortgage from? So
I think they should meet each other halfway.
Yeah, some of the land that, it's part of inheritance because some of them have died.
I know time is up.
Yes,
my people told me reliably that the minister, managed from Apo to Kershi. That road has been on for some time.
Yes.
I am saying, and it's not because I come from that access, I am saying that when that road happens, Kershi will become London. Then some of you are going
when the roads
Kingsley might ask me to look for
everybody wants to live in a place where it's quiet.
The serenity of that place is something else.
Yeah, no,
El-Rufai worked.
Yes.
Yeah, those hills are lovely.
Yes.
And sometimes when you look at local investors, I'm not an investor, but those ordinarily who will develop things, those are the kinds of locations.
Yeah,
you
we're
have
running out of time.
resorts.
To go.
You develop resorts, so you get out of the city.
That's for
you go there for a weekend.
Yes, exactly. Chukudi, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Take a break when we
I
return.
like you. You always know when to
yes,
shut me up.
Our conversation will begin. Don't go away.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop this nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interests of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right, for the love of country.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Bornvita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength to pursue his dreams. Bornvita, strength to dream.
You and your hair go through a lot. The heat, rain, chaos. It's a non-stop war against total breakdown. But just like you, your hair can stay strong no matter what. Mega Growth Break-Free Daily Leave-In Strengthener for all hair types is infused with a unique blend of natural oils and conditioning proteins that helps protect your hair. Mega Growth Break-Free, your daily defense against breakage.
As an MC, I need to walk the talk. It's a walk I've walked many times. It's okay, everyone. Nothing's well. Before, these tough stains would stay on my clothes, and all the scrubbing, it would fade my colors. But thanks to Ariel Color Expert, nothing's well.
It lifts the toughest stains, keeping your clothes bright, wash after wash.
Oshay, Ariel Color Expert. Let's get this party started.
New Ariel, 5 times color protect power.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Something new is about to hit your imagination of TV. A brand new sundial with StarTime's inbuilt technology. New TV innovation with an inbuilt decoder that connects you to both StarTime's antenna and satellite signal. StarTime Sundial TV, you can enjoy over 300 local and international channels, 1 month StarTime's highest bouquet for free, automatic system update. More benefits, more affordable. StarTimes Sundial TV is available in all StarTimes branches and dealers countrywide. StarTimes Inside, entertainment inbuilt.
Fellow Nigerians, this period may be hard on us, and there is no doubt that it's tough on us. But I urge you all to look beyond the present temporary pains and aim at the larger picture. All our good and helpful plans are in the works. More importantly, I know that they will work.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service and from our headquarters studios in Abuja. As a backgrounder to our conversation on the renewed violent attacks on security personnel, we'll take this backgrounder by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
In every society, there are individuals or groups who may run foul of the law or engage in unlawful activities that require security agencies and their personnel to take action. The major role played by the security personnel is to ensure that the full protection of lives and properties of citizens, as well as defend the nation from internal and external aggression. While other citizens are asleep, security personnel stay awake and sometimes in difficult situations to ensure that law and order prevails. The duties of security operatives make them a pride of the nation and a symbol of law and order, as they are admired, celebrated and loved by law-abiding citizens and conversely feared or hated by lawbreakers. Nigerian security agencies and their personnel have triumphed within and beyond the shores of the country in fighting crimes and promoting global peace and security. However, with the level of bravery and laurels bestowed on security personnel due to their gallantry, there is a great concern on the sad development where the security personnel have come under attack in a situation best described as the hunter becoming the hunted. Nigeria over time has recorded serious attacks on security personnel, with some paying the supreme price in the course of their duties. The number of Nigerian security personnel killed in the fight against terrorism and insurgency cannot be forgotten in a hurry, not talking about cases such as the End SARS protest, where some security personnel were injured and or killed. Recent incidents include in Imo State, where some gunmen ambushed, killed and burnt 8 security personnel who were responding to a distress call in Ehime. Several attacks were recorded in Ngo-Okpala local government area. Also, several military personnel were killed by terrorists who attacked Kunduk village near Zungeru in Niger State. And some days later, the Nigerian Defense Headquarters confirmed that 3 officers and 22 soldiers were killed during the ambush and helicopter crash. Another ugly incident is the barbaric killing of a DPO who was brutally murdered by suspected cultists in Rivers State. These are just few instances of security personnel being attacked and killed in the course of performing their legitimate duties. These renewed attacks have become a source of concern among Nigerians, who fear that an affront on law enforcement personnel clearly puts the entire society in danger. What is the motivation behind these renewed attacks? Why have they become audacious and even barbaric? Are the culprits brought to book? What becomes of the victims and their families? What are the implications of these to the society at large? Could this dampen the morale of these security personnel? And will it also affect the relationship between the security personnel and citizens? These are some questions begging for answers from our guest already seated in the studio.
Indeed, there are questions begging for answers, and to get those answers, let's welcome Barrister Mike Ejiofor, former director at the Department of State Services. It's good to have you join us, a regular on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And also here in the studio, we have another regular, Dr. Kabir Adamu, security risk management expert. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Our guest this morning is the Chief Superintendent of Corps, Babawale Afolabi, who is the National Public Relations Officer of Nigeria's Security and Civil Defense Corps, what's popularly referred to as Civil Defense. Babawale Afolabi, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Also, let's welcome the former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army and now consultant to the Army Resource Center here in Abuja, Brigadier General Usman Kuka Sheka. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Basking in the euphoria of his wedding anniversary, 32nd, I think, was it?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, and
thank you.
Many years ahead, we wish you.
Yes.
Amen.
All right, gentlemen, a couple of years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, we had a conversation on the violent attacks on security personnel. Personnel who are, of course, on the front lines. We know that in the war against terror, there are casualties on both sides. But those who are engaged more in civil policing duties had faced some terrible onslaught from various criminal elements a few years ago. And so we had a conversation on the program. A number of suggestions came out of that interaction. In recent times, we have seen an upsurge again in attacks on security personnel. And that's why we have framed today's conversation as renewed attacks on security personnel. Anyone and everyone, of course, should be worried or concerned, with the exception of the perpetrators of those attacks. But let's get a context to what's happening. Dr. Kabir Adamu, what are we seeing at this time?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Frankly, the situation hasn't changed from the last time we had this conversation. It's a simple case of non-state armed groups challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state. Under the social contract, we as a people have let go of certain rights and handed it over to the government, and that includes the ability of the agents of the state to bear weapons. Now, a group of individuals are challenging that supremacy of the use of force by the state and are directly targeting agents of the state to show that they are challenging the state. If in the northeast is the same scenario, in the southeast, the secessionist group are doing the same thing. In the northwest, the bandit groups are doing the same thing. So sadly, that's the element that has remained with us till date.
These are, times where when you hear news of this sort of attack, it touches you because, people who are supposed to protect you are being killed. Let me bring in Barrister Mike Ejiofor. Most of these attacks comes from distress calls, calling for reinforcement. And I would like to ask you this question fundamentally. Is the communication system of the security agencies good enough? Is it being hacked? If not, how can they be waiting for them before they come in? Like in Niger State, they called for distress. Before they came in, the bandits were waiting for them. What is happening to the communication system between the security forces?
Yeah, you see, let me just lay a background, just like
Yes.
Dr. Kabir said. These non-state actors are trying to challenge the legitimacy of government, make people lose confidence in government. And when people lose confidence in government with series of attacks on the enforcers, the security agencies, people are bound to lose confidence in government. Now, on the equipment, in terms of communication, you see, the problem is that it's the same group of people, the non-state actors, the bandits themselves, that will make such a distress call, giving you their location. And our security agencies will also want to act because you don't know whether it's a, but it ends up being a decoy. So that's why they run into such ambush. But I think we should, at this time, look at the strategies when the calls are made. Because when calls are made, of course, we normally trace such calls and their location. So if we have such equipment, to locate the place and the place of the calls, I think we can use other ways of getting to that place instead of running to that decoy that these people are using now, because it's becoming very worrisome.
It is.
That they are killing
they
our
can intercept,
security,
yes, communication.
intercept and kill us with reckless abandon. Look at your intro. It's not just killing our security agencies. These are people who have families. You decapitate, kill somebody, cut off his head, and you burn them. I think the government must take decisive action to bring this very dastardly act to a halt.
All right, thank you very much, Chief Ejiofor. Let's bring in now Brigadier General Kuka Sheikh Usman. Let's have your own framing of what's unfolding. Because when you say or get a report that 8 security personnel have been taken down by criminal elements, that's a number. And in different parts of the country, these things are just happening almost with reckless abandon. What's happening in your opinion?
Well, thank you very much. Really, the situation is very, very sad, precarious, and unpalatable. Just like Kabiru and Dr. Mike have alluded to, we have had a situation whereby, the instrument of coercion has been surrendered to the state agents, but we have individuals that are challenging that supremacy. And the thinking is, so what else is remaining? Take, for instance, any of the security forces, not only the military. Every life is very precious, but associated with it, a single individual being a Nigerian, being killed by somebody else, it portends a lot of things. Families will be left mourning, and of course, possibly breadwinner. And you look at the resources also, the investment the state has invested in him or her, the case may be in terms of equipping them, in terms of training and what have you. Today that person is no more. And of course, leaving a gap. We are not even talking about the moralizing aspect of it. Now, it was, in those days, it was very, very rare, particularly to see the military among the civilians. But now it has become reoccurring, decimal. But beyond that, in fact, I noted that even our language has changed. When you are talking about frontline state within Nigeria. When you talk about frontline, automatically is something that connotes war, violence, and what have you. And they have become normal. So it's quite unfortunate. And unless concerted efforts are made, we'll have a problem. And I think we have had instances of policy somersaults. And we tend to operate things in isolation with other factors. Take, for instance, we know the bottom line to this is timely and accurate information and intelligence. To what extent have you galvanized, not just necessarily equipping the security forces, but members of the Nigerian society to support? And when you put all these current security challenges that have just occurred, you will realize that some other individuals were involved. Is it in the southeast? Information has started filtering in that some people were in concert with these criminal elements. Be it the one that has just recently happened in Gusau, the one in Shiroro, the one in Imo State. All they are certain people. And we go back to the fact that we have this concept of war economy. In any complex situation, there are merchants that are benefiting from it. So who are those people? And it will take the use of the intelligence and technology to unravel them. Take, for instance, the phone calls. Yes, in most instances, you have had people, they will make phone calls and dispose of the SIM card. But that notwithstanding, recall back some years back, there was a directive in which all phone lines must be registered. So what happened to the data? And that brings the issue of technology, the issue of even record keeping. Now, precisely, nobody will tell you the number of people that have been abducted in Gusau among the students and the workers, simply because the records are not there. And we kept on having data here and there. The banks take any other time you are filling any form, they will take your picture and all the rest. Who is the clearinghouse? How do we match this information and the antecedents of these people so that you will, and beyond that again, we have to think of those conducive atmospheres that enhance cordial relationship between the people and the government. Because almost everybody, the gap is getting wider, so people who are supposed to when they see something, to say something, contribute their bit. They have become desperate in the sense that they don't have that sense of belonging. So unless we look at this thing in proper perspective, including social security system in the country, so that everybody could have, that elements of patriotism, we will continue to have this problem. If you look at, people closed market before the incidents in Daim. So they have a whole knowledge of what was going on. And why? Security forces. We have not had instances of ambush, but we now have. And in fact, they have upscaled their weaponry from the use of AK-47 to something of higher caliber. Then to what extent are we helping this small arms and medium weapons center? These are issues that we have to look at. And honestly, it is not just the security forces, but every other person is feeling bad about it, because any single life, is precious and is important. And one of the staying powers of Nigeria as a nation, as a country, is its abundant human resources. But unfortunately, we don't take advantage of it to see how we can, give everybody a sense of belonging to contribute meaningfully. I don't know whether there is conspiracy theory that they just don't want us to, to live in peace, so that we can develop further and, take the world on.
Brigadier General Pukushika, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions, and I'm sure a generation that was born in 2000 to now do not even know how good Nigeria used to be before and how secured we used to be before. Now let's bring in Chief Superintendent of the Corps, Baba Wale Ofolabi, National Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. Apart from the police, here are the people who are closest to the people. You work with them, you protect national infrastructure and all that, and a lot of your officers have been killed in the process, especially in the South, guarding the oil facilities. How does it feel when you lose a colleague, and how painful is the process of telling the family that somebody you love has died? And in some cases, the bodies are never found. Like in Imo State, the man was decapitated. He was killed in River State, I think, or Imo State. You don't get to see the body of your loved one. At times I wonder how people in the force are able to, have strong shock absorbers, to take this kind of shock. So how does it feel? And what are you doing to ensure that your personnel are safe out there?
Thank you very much. Having known that Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, we are the lead agency when we're talking about protection of critical national asset and infrastructure, and we join other security operatives too in protecting lives and properties. But when something of such happened, definitely, actually we know it's something that's very, very bad. And there's nothing we can do about it than to face the situation. And we thank God for the leadership. I'm talking about our Home Commander in General, Dr. Ahmed Abubakar, the MNI UFR, who has been working assiduously in making the call a first-class service. When things like this happen, it's not been easy. Then we have to face it, and we have to see the families involved. And if it interests you to know, some couple of months ago, about 500 million was rolled out to some of the disease we've lost as they're working in the service. So we have to compensate the families. And aside that, there are times when we feel that maybe the wife is educated and she also is interested in the job. One way or the other, we give the person opportunity to be part of the Corps. And these are part of the things we're doing. And concerning what's going on in the country right now, we know it's something very bad. But at the same time, we know that it has happened in some countries before. It's something that I can call asymmetric conflicts. It has happened in Sri Lanka, in Kenya, and Rwanda. But thank God, those countries, things are going on well. And I'm glad to let you know that we security operatives now, we've been working assiduously in order to combat all the things going on in terms of intelligence gathering, just like what my boss has rightly said. And I'm sure very soon, all these things will be a thing of the past.
This has been said for a very long time.
But this one
and
is quite...
Nigerians are becoming sort of skeptical.
Yes, you're right. Thank God we have a new leadership now. And you know, we've been having a diverse meeting with the President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and I'm sure very soon something will happen and it's really going to change for better.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Babawale Afolabi. Well, gentlemen, we know that this is a security matter, and therefore there are boundaries beyond which we cannot go. But I want to put an issue on the table for us to consider, and it's as follows. Oftentimes, when it suits us, we talk about international best practices. And in other jurisdictions, whenever a law enforcement officer is taken down in the line of duty by criminal elements, the state mobilizes to be sure that the perpetrators are hounded and brought to justice. If in the process of hot pursuit they get neutralized, so be it. What are we seeing here? I want to ask Dr. Kabir Adamu first. You always say this, that we have some 20-something plus agencies that are involved in security matters in our country. Is it, for instance, that the silo mentality also creeps in? So, I'm not saying police lose 2 or 3 personnel in Rivers. Okay, it's the business of the police, let them go and chase it. The military lose personnel in Imo. Okay, it's the business of the military. And sometimes you find a scorched earth policy. You wipe out anything you can see on the way. If people get security personnel, civil defense get attacked somewhere, oh, it's the business. Elsewhere, as I said, and you are familiar with this, when it happens, because the resources available to the state are not available to these criminal gangs. Is it this same silo mentality in hounding and bringing these elements to justice? Is it what is giving them the free passage, even the audacity to continue with this? Because it happens to the police will go on their own after a while, you say, then another one happens. Kabir.
There are several factors that I would say are responsible for where we found ourselves. One of them is this silo, issue that you brought up, where in the past I've discussed security sector governance, on this platform. It is the glue that holds this 27 or 29 ministries, departments, and agencies together. It is the platform that allows the government to look at the contribution that each one of them makes towards achievement of Section 14, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which is the primary responsibility of government. Now, if you sit from that platform and you look at the contribution that each and every one of these 27, 29 makes, and you are able to say, okay, this is the gap that is created, or this is the glue that we need to put together to ensure that they work towards that common goal. So you are able to make corrections there and then to allow for the achievement of that. Sadly, over the last few years, we haven't seen enough of that. And we are hoping that in this administration, we'll see an improvement. Now, you use the example of other countries. I can bet you if a citizen of, let's say, the UK is abducted internationally in certain circumstances, the first thing they will do is to call a COBRA meeting, as an example, where the security leadership, those that have responsibility for security at that level, what we call the C-suite, they are able to sit down, identify what is needed in terms of national power. Here, we're not just talking about the contribution of these 27 or 29 MDAs, but our national power. What do I mean? Someone like Dangote, he's a private individual. He has companies in certain parts of the world where our own capabilities cannot even reach. If at that meeting they deem that it is best to contact him to support the government in rescuing that particular individual, that decision will be taken. Now, again, this is a public forum, so one is mindful of what he says, but we've seen instances where we've not seen that type of response. So I think I've spoken about security sector governance. I would also talk about security sector reform that makes our security sector amenable to our democratic expectations. In other words, why is the security sector in existence in the first place? Is it not to protect the Nigerian? Now, if the security official is also a Nigerian, what is the responsibility of the government to him? That is where security sector reform will come in. There are what we call the 4 Ds of security, and I'm happy that Brigadier General spoke to a large extent around that. The 4 Ds of security. You deploy a security personnel to a location. You want to make sure he has the ability to detect the enemy. He has the ability to deny the enemy from attacking the people in that location, and more importantly, to attack him. So in that instance, I do not understand, and maybe other guests will help clarify that. Why do we still have our security personnel moving in soft-skinned vehicles in a war environment where an enemy can hide in the foliage, use an AK-47, shoot at them, that AK-47 will pierce that vehicle, the uniform they're wearing, because they don't have protective gear, it would reach them. So that's a major disadvantage that needs to be addressed. He spoke about surveillance. There is no non-state armed group that has the capacity for surveillance better than the state. Yeah, it's an asymmetric warfare. They are able to infuse themselves within the community, but it is because we are not taking advantage of this 27, 29 MDAs. As an example, the civil defense, they have deployment in the 36 states of the Federation and FCT. The SSS, as an example, are deployed in the 774 local government. If you pick all these 27, 29, they are represented across the entire Federation. Now, do we have a central pool for collating, and analyzing intelligence? He mentioned certain things that were indicators that if we had an intelligence capability that was efficient and effective, that would have notified the security personnel on ground. If you see a market closing, as an example, it's an indicator. If you see people that ordinarily should be on the street moving, it's an indicator. So what happened to the deployment that we have in those locations? Did they pick up that in those indicators? Did they process those indicators? Were those indicators passed on to the relevant agencies? Did they fail to use the intelligence that was provided to them? So when I talk about security sector governance and the high-level meetings that I should have held, those are the kind of things that would have been addressed. Because the emphasis is you identify what led to it and you put in place corrective measures to prevent reoccurrence. A couple of years ago, I hate to take us back, but it's relevant to our conversation, in Nasarawa State, over 70 of our security forces were killed.
In Ego?
90
yeah.
were killed. What happened in that incident? DSS and other security personnel. Security. So my point is there have been instances in the past where occurrences like that have happened, but we haven't taken corrective measures. And sadly, and I hate to be the harbinger of this bad news, if we do not take corrective measures with what has happened recently, it's going to continue.
Mike Ejiofor.
Yeah. You see, the problem actually is that you can't continue to do the same thing, same way, and expect different result. For our security agencies, we need to work more closely to ensure that these things don't continue to repeat. You know, our security forces are guided by standard operational procedures. But of recent, we've seen a departure from that. The issue of the killing and burning of some of our soldiers and this in Imo State. That is for no reason should be justified. But a situation where our military or our security agencies will go there and burn down the place again. The people are afraid of the bandits. They're afraid of reaction from government. So how do you expect them to cooperate? Don't also forget that these same people, like I said, they have no standard operational procedure. They are propelled, one by drug, again, charms, which they believe will protect them. But when they are arrested, you see that they are babies. They behave like babies. They are normal human beings. So we need to get the people support so that they don't become despondent, both from the part of government that is supposed to protect them and from the part of these enemies of the state. Now, recently, they now started releasing videos threatening more action against both the people and government. I'm making special reference to the Southeast because it's becoming very, very intolerable. I must be able to get to sieve what is the cause of the problem in the Southeast. We should be able to know, are these real agitators or just criminal elements who are intent on creating fear among the people? You see the videos they release that Kano should be government on its part. Judgments have been given for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, which is not being obeyed. I am not supporting criminality, but he has also said that he is not part and does not support the criminal aspect of this unknown gunman. But they use his name. So how do we move forward? The government should extract commitment from him with well-known leaders of the South, because the Southeast, both politics and economy, is grounded. Nothing is happening in that. And you cannot continue to profess that we're part of the same country where nothing is there. Today is Monday. Despite the fact that some of the Southeast governors have said no more sit at home, nobody will come out. So how long shall we continue like that? We have election coming up now in Imo State. And these same people are threatening that people should not come out to vote. And if you don't vote, the people will be disenfranchised and the anarchy continues. Government must find a midway. This is a political problem, especially in the Southeast. We are not talking of this mass kidnapping now that's prevalent in the Northwest, North Central. Those ones, through technology, can be achieved. But this one that have political undertones should be at least do something about it to see whether those people will be operating, or he will not give a directive that this should not continue.
General Kukasheka, let's have
yeah, General Kukasheka, I want you to also weigh in
on the
via this perspective of the apparent silo mentality in dealing with these elements when they have struck, or even before they strike. And we can illustrate this. There are many examples. Something happens, for instance, let's say a terror attack in any of the very well-known capitals, say in London, in Paris, or in New York. And you would find that raids are organized almost immediately. And they strike at a number of flats at locations, pick up persons, and there's no question of anybody saying, no, I'm an innocent person. Because there's the presumption, therefore, will be for an outsider who is watching that they had kept a tab on these persons. And therefore, you have a fire that is immediately generated, like the cobra that Kabir was talking about. So it strikes, you have, so all right, you have your own mapping. These are the guys that are probably, I'm sorry using the word guys, that's not formal, but these are the elements that are most likely responsible for this, and this is where they are real-time intelligence, and the state moves in with its power. But as I said, it appears that they strike at will, And we shared all the tears, and the orphans and widows are born or left, and then we're waiting for the next round of attacks. What's going on? Can we continue like this?
I believe you were part of the team in Maiduguri that were able to drive Boko Haram out of Maiduguri at that time, and that what he said is exactly what you did. You know, going into these areas that have been affected and where people are being killed to flush out the Boko Haram part. Let's have your experience on that, and then Kinsley's question.
Well, usually, like I said earlier on, is the issue of collective responsibility, and usually, again, you don't have to wait for things to happen, then you react. There should be continuous stress analysis, you know, looking at your resources available and weaknesses and high points and what have you. So, and we have been seeing it. We have been seeing it. Whenever there are important functions, you see raids being carried out. And that is why, again, when he was talking about this political issue, and I realized that some of these criminalities, particularly in the southeast, to a large extent, they are hinged on political activities, especially when you have forthcoming elections. Now, and that is where the issue of seriousness comes into play. You know, before the Anambra election, there were similar threats, and the state government said no, there will be election, and it came and gone peacefully. So if we can be able to conduct what has been done, you know, to ensure that, why won't we replicate same in similar circumstances? I mean, situations of that nature. And it goes back to the assessment, taking security to the front burner. Because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that will happen if the society or the environment is not secure. You cannot even think straight. Talk less of, you know, unleashing your creativity to see how best you can contribute meaningfully to national development. So how do we make the environment secure? And each has a role to play. How do you... Thank God the national security strategy has made it abundantly clear about roles and responsibilities. Unfortunately, the resources are not there, and the issue of coordination, just like Dr. Kadam has said, what happened to the national center that is supposed to be created since 2019 to date? Who is coordinating, who is collaborating with who? But we have this lead agency mentality as against issues of cooperation, collaboration, and coordination. But even if you want to cooperate, even if you want to collaborate, what are the resources available to you? And who is the coordinating body that will coordinate that? Now, what happened in the Northeast that Jimmy was talking about, sincerely, you know, initially there was conspiracy of silence on the part of the people.
Yes.
You know, they were just looking at them more or less just like their children. But when the chiefs are down, they realized even the elites were being threatened. Quite a number of people were killed. They realized that, look, it is, everybody is facing an existential threat. And before I even talk about that, that thing happened in Kaduna. In 1 August, I think 2015, no, 20, either 12 or 2013, I can't remember precisely, when the Boko Haram were going to attack in a Siena bus laden with IED. But unfortunately for them, because of so many checkpoints, they have to meander within the town, somewhere before Ahmadu Bello Stadium, along Ahmadu Bello Way, the bomb detonated. 21 innocent souls were lost. Some of them, they only came there to buy Accra, because basically there was one Papa and Accra woman seller, and of course vendors were there, you know, cutting across various socio-economic strata of Kaduna. So people were made to understand that, look, it is not just about you know, Christian or Muslim, everybody is a victim. We come out with this stakeholders' constructive engagement fortnightly, right from Okada up to, you know, the elites in Kaduna. At one division, we discuss issues. Until now, people also confide in me with information. So the same thing that happened in the Northeast. Now, people were made to understand that actually, these people were after everybody. It is not just security, or it is not Christian, or everybody. So people started to cooperate. People started to understand. And of course, the military and the security forces kept on perfecting. Unlike a situation where you receive a distress call, you will not respond or you will not act on it. Now they have seen results. So there was this sincerity of purpose and commitment, so people began to open up. And to a large extent, there was visible proaction in terms of information dissemination, in the sense that people were given sense of belonging, because in previous instances, nobody was talking to the people. And there was a converging point between the victims and the perpetrators of crime in terms of information. If you look at it in the North, naturally the pattern of media consumption to a large extent is radio. So extensively we made use of that, and people tend to understand that for the first time, they began to see the then leader of the Boko Haram in clear light and perspective that he was nothing but a criminal and a terrorist, a rapist and armed robber. Before you guys, well, Kingsley again with you guys.
Yes.
In Maiduguri, you dare not say Boko Haram, or you can't say Shekau. It's just Yara Malam. We do deference to the children of the teacher. You know, when we are growing up, when they said you are associated with the teacher, you are defined with high reverence.
We couldn't even have conversations in the office,
but now they have seen him.
Was Boko Haram
now
then.
They are seeing him. They realize actually he was just an ordinary criminal.
Yes.
So people become more emboldened. And in this situation, there are so many people that could contribute meaningfully, but we are not engaging them.
So who are the we? So when you say that's the point. We are not engaged. Who should activate this kind of engagement through the various modalities? Everyone, again, Kabir, so the 7 plus MDAs that are involved with security issues, and there's no. I want to be straight. Who should? Yes.
I'm using the collective now because it's a Nigerian. Everybody is an equal partner in the quest for a better and more secured Nigeria. And to a large extent, I'm using it in the context of law-abiding citizens as against those criminal elements. Now, we have a duty to hold the government accountable and to ensure that the right thing is done. And that is the context under which I'm using the we. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, you understand that we have the security people, agencies, and, you know, they are doing the best they can. But to what extent are we making sure that, yes, their best is good enough, and are they fully equipped with the necessary facilities to carry out their duty? It might not necessarily be, you know, the A vehicles and the B vehicle Kabir is talking about, you know, soft skin, hard skin, and all the rest. No, but in terms of information, you have made reference to the psychological trauma when you lost someone. What are those provisions in terms of welfare and effective administration of the security forces? In the first place, do you even have the number? What is your priority vis-a-vis the threat that you are facing? Now, even the security forces are competing for allocation of resources in terms of budgetary allocation. And even at that, the subhead could be infrastructural capital development as against your current, you know, these are some of the issues. But then coming back to who should, I made reference to the National Security Strategy 2019. And I think you need to have a closer look at it. 8 of these 29 ministry departments and agencies have been allocated responsibilities. But beyond them, also there are responsibilities that behoves of some of these higher agencies that are supposed to be the clearinghouse and coordinate their activities. Let's even look at the correctional service and the policing system. What is the relationship between the correctional service which is the last rung in our criminal justice system, and the policing system. You know, in terms of data, in terms of, you know, sharing of information. And I could remember way back in 2018 when we went to National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, in which, during which we interrogated the internal security framework and community policing of this country. And we traversed all the states in the Federation and 6 African countries and 6 other countries in the world to look at what are the best practices in terms of internal security, especially in terms of policing system with reference to community policing. Recommendations were made. In fact, one of the recommendations is the issue of harmonization of information in terms, in fact, had it been that it was followed, you only have one security agent at exit point of this country. By the time they put your passport.
General, you see, well, I'm sorry, I'm not cutting you short. I just want you to further again elaborate. Useful information you are giving her back again to virtually the same challenge. Recommendations are made almost like a blueprint. Get to implement it, you have issues.
And that is why I talk about policy somersaults at the opening.
Yes,
and that is why, because when you look at the registration of SIM card, nobody is hearing about it again. Had it been that it was followed, and I could remember the then Minister of Information and Digital Economy was a guest speaker at the Nigerian Army's Resource Center. And he gave out the statistics about those things. And no sooner than that was done, the Boko Haram lane leader, Shekau, threatened him. So, and that would have gone a long way to tell you that the policy was working. So somewhere along the line, we got stuck. Now, I can rest assure you, you don't need to go to, in fact, you can go to any one of these, along the street here in Abuja, you can pick a SIM card.
Yes.
But I know that in some countries, take for instance, where, I could remember, is it in Eritrea, by the time you are having, you are purchasing a SIM card or you are getting a SIM card, the Minister for Information and Communication will have to sign. And by the time he signed, definitely your name and everything about you has gone into the data bank. If anything happens, they know where to go to. And that goes back to the issue of mapping of, you know, vulnerable points, flash points, and what have you. So you don't even have to wait. Like we have entered the Ember period, you know the likely areas where we'll have problems.
Yes.
But you left only the military, they come out with operations, Apatuma, Crocodile Smile, and what have you, to deal with these security challenges as they emerge. And to a large extent, they have been quite useful. But I think we should not go the hard way. How do we, you know, put in place effective measures without necessarily, and going back to even that issue that you're talking about, where are the mobile policemen today? So these are supposed to be the layers. And I could remember the Nigerian Army Resource Center has even made the suggestion that all these policemen, most of them with BIPs, should be withdrawn. They should be given further training and revive the mobile police force. At least if each of the states has at least 1,000 of the mobile policemen well trained, I can rest assure you some of the security challenges will be reduced. And that goes a long way with the special forces of the civil defense, special forces of the military. So you have layers upon layer. Unless the situations are so dire, then you deploy the mobile policemen.
Yes.
And naturally they will come, solve the problem,
and go
hand over.
Yes.
But now you have protracted, you know, deployment of military and security forces.
Well, okay. You know, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions and issues, you know, that should be on the front burner in the area of security and defense of the territorial integrity of Nigeria and within the internal security too. We'll get to talk about that, about reforms and implementation when we come back from this break. Don't go away.
To the Government of the Federation and Chairman, Interministerial Committee on Nigeria's 63rd Independence Anniversary, Senator George Akume, CON, invites all members of the Interministerial Committee, civil society organizations, stakeholders in the media industry and interested members of the public to the World Press Conference to mark the celebration scheduled to hold as follows. Date, Monday 25th September 2023. Venue, National Press Center, Radio House, Area 10, Garki, Abuja. Time, 11 a.m. Mohammed Idris, FNIPR, Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation and Chairman, Media and Publicity Subcommittee. Announcer.
You're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, all our four guests are still here with us. And this very, of course, touching subject matter. Obviously, in the course of this conversation, we've addressed what the concerns are of the various families who get to lose their loved ones in the line of duty. Let's bring in again the national spokesperson of Civil Defense, Afolabi. Chief Superintendent Afolabi, again, there are issues around interagency cooperation and collaboration. What more should we see, or would you expect, if you want to dive into that area, between and amongst the agencies? There are many illustrations that can be cited to say, look, something happens and the state is so powerful. And that's why it's often said that no individual, no gang, even so-called non-state actors, can stand up to the state if the state decides to mobilize its resources, actual and potential. But we appear to be on the back foot. So what more would you like to see in terms of interagency cooperation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Synergy plays a major role in terms of security. Remember when I was in office, I have to visit other paramilitary organizations. I have to see the spokesperson of correctional service, immigration, fire service, and the likes. Why? Because when we work together, it will bring good results. And our advice, fine, at the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, we do go for training and retraining exercises. But I think it would be nice, because of the thing going on right now, it would be nice if we can be having a kind of corporate training and retraining. For instance, now, I went for a training at Katsina, Peace and Conflict Management. Why can't we just do it together with the Nigerian police, with the Nigerian army? And by the time we rub minds together, I will know that in so year, me and Brigadier so we were for a course together. And when we have issues, we'll be able to even sort it. You know, you can even call the person personally. Something is going on here. What are you guys doing? And some other things like that. So if we can work more on that synergy. Actually, they've been good. I mean, the synergy has been really tight, especially for senior officers. But we have issues with the junior officers. So, and that's what we've been working on. And at the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense, because they've been training and retraining exercises, trying to educate some of our junior officers that you still have to portray the image of the call when you see other, should I say, officers out there, maybe in another agency. So these are the things we're doing. So if we can work more on that collaboration, it's really going to help out.
So how do you deal with the superiority issue?
You know, the superiority issue, and that's what we're saying. Okay, for instance now, as I'm a chief superintendent of call, if I see another officer who is a police officer, definitely I have to respect the person. I have to even salute the person. Why? Because police have been in existence for the past 100 years. And we just have to give kudos to them for that. So, you see, in everything you're doing, you just have to, like, let respect go ahead of you. No matter what, when you see another person, don't say, because this person, we are carrying the same rank, no, I'm not going to salute him first and some other things. When you do that, you see this synergy will be tighter.
And then the question, Kabir, of security sector accountability was an issue we took in two parts on Good Morning Nigeria. And it was earlier in the year. To say, look, incidents happen, who takes responsibility? Who dropped the ball at a particular point in time? Or if the ball was in the air, who failed to head it into the net? I mean, Atletico was scoring 3 goals yesterday, all through headers.
I knew you were going to get to that.
You know, I had some clumsy defensive work until there was some realignment. But stuff happens in soccer. But you know, who dropped the ball? Who wasn't looking closely, and why should that happen? It's just like some of these things. I'm not saying so, but there could be. I don't have information as to what goes on in the back room when they are comparing notes and all that. So, can we return to that security sector accountability? Yeah. And more essentially, the coordinated deployment of state assets and resources when an incident like that happens. Everybody, you know, I'm not saying everybody, literally, everybody, you know, go out there and let them take the heat of the state.
There are layers to security sector accountability. But earlier on, when I spoke about security sector governance, I had that in mind. Security sector governance will address security sector accountability. In other words, when the instrument of state recognizes that its responsibility is to meet that section 14 subsection 2 of the Constitution, and where, for instance, the president appoints a minister, and hopefully, and again, because President Buhari put into law the Executive Order number 13, upon which hopefully in the next few days or weeks there will be a performance bond signing between the ministers and the president. Then that gives the president the first instrument of accountability. If he signs a performance bond with the minister to say, okay, Minister of Defense, based on the mandate of your ministry, this is what I expect of you. Now, as you recall, the president put forward, if I remember, 8 deliverables, and out of those 8 priority areas, the 8 priority areas include security. Now, if you are Minister of Defense, this is what I expect you to achieve as the minister, and then a performance bond is signed, under which there are deliverables for Ministry of Defense. So that's the first layer of accountability. But how are we going to instrumentalize that? It's just a bond. Who is going to follow up to make sure that the minister actually does what is expected of him? That is where the office of the SGF, especially the CDCU, Central Coordinating Delivery Unit.
We had them on Good Morning Nigeria a couple of years ago.
Excellent. I think you should invite them again, because a lot has happened between then and now. What are the instruments, the M&E monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that they are going to put in place to follow up on that performance bond that was signed between the president and the minister? Now, under that, there are going to be KPIs, key performance indicators. What are those key performance indicators? The simple thing that the man in the village will understand as key performance indicators is his ability to access his farm, his ability to stand up from village A to village B, his ability to go to the market. For a man in the village, that's his KPIs. Now, that is what the CDCU should be able to bring up in terms of key performance indicators and measure the ability of that minister to achieve. Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Police Affairs as an example. If we take the police, how are they going to enhance policing within the 4 years that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or 8 years as the case may be? So that's one layer. Layer number 2, the coordinating elements within the security sector. Who are they? Office of the National Security Advisor, Minister of Defense, Interior, Police Affairs. I think that's all. And then to an extent, you can bring in the Secretary to the Government and the Federation and Chief of Staff to the President. They all have coordinating elements to play within. They also have ways of keeping tabs of these KPIs. Now, all of these things that I've mentioned are within one arm of government, the executive arm. That's where the other component of accountability comes in, the role of the National Assembly. First off, they are the ones who review the law. Are we happy with the current mandate? I can tell you there are organizations that the last time we looked at their mandate was during the military era. So there is a need to also look at that. Are their mandates in tandem with the current expectations of the democratic government that we're in? The second part is the oversight functions that this National Assembly plays. I can tell you from my vantage point that there is a lot of capacity that needs to be built in that regard. And then lastly is the role of the civil society organizations, the media, and then every Nigerian. like the Brigadier General mentioned earlier on, we have a key role to play in accountability. First off, through the Freedom of Information Act, which allows us to ask critical questions regarding how performance of security organizations are being handled. If we are not happy, we should be able to ask critical questions, both in terms of, like I said, the media, and then the civil society organizations, and then as an average individual. So these are the multiple layers of accountability within the security sector. And sadly, for each and every one of them, I think there is room for improvement.
Yes, and according to the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, security is on the front burner because a secured nation is economically strong. And two people...
If you allow me to quickly read through what the renewed hope agenda mentioned, which is relevant to our conversation. Yes. There are 7 things that were mentioned there. So number 1, bolster our security forces. That is the aspiration that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has. Yes. And there are several elements under that. Number 2 is to redefine military doctrine and practice. Also very important. Very important. And I'm sure Brigadier General Kukashika can talk about that. Number 3, secure critical national infrastructure. Their very mandate. So Ministry of Interior. Number 4, peaceful communities, secure borders, safe forests. I have been on this program severally where I've spoken about ungoverned spaces. The Bola Tinubu administration is saying they will secure those ungoverned spaces. So we will hold them accountable to that. Number 5, integrated identity database, the point made by Brigadier General. And as part of that commitment, they have moved NIMSI to the Ministry of Interior. So already, it's not just talk. We're seeing action in that regard. So we're also hoping we'll hold them to account to that in the next few years. The next one is international collaboration, realizing that we can't do it alone. We need to bring in partners. And as you know, he went to India. He signed, I think, about $1 billion deal with a company. He also went to Dubai and signed another deal. So again, it's not just talk. We're seeing practice. Yes. Meanwhile, I'm not wearing an APC cap. I'm saying this because this is what is contained in the
contained
document. Yes. And then lastly, reposition the police. Under that, we're hoping that in the next few weeks we'll see a directive from Mr. President to withdraw all mobile police from VIPs and for the civil defense to take over. We're hoping, again, we'll hold the government to account.
Okay, thank you, Barrister Jeffo.
Yes, I can see Dr. Kabiru issue policy statements. Yes. I hope you are still with us.
What I'm doing is reading from the review.
He read from it verbatim. He didn't change anything out of it. Yeah, he has changed. What did he change?
What he said are analytical. We've had these things several times. What we want, like you also concluded, what the average man in my village requires. How do I assess my farm? Not all these big grammar. Let us do all this. Coordination is very key. You see, last November, I was elected the national president of the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Security Studies. And this school trains more than the 27 NDAs, armed forces, police, civil defense, everybody. So by so doing, you are now laying foundation for that collaboration and synergy. You look at our other layers. You talk of the police, for instance. I remember the Inspector General of Police issue anytime any Inspector General of Police comes in, he issued withdrawing all these people. The police is understaffed. They are not recruiting. Police, as we speak now, is less than 350,000 strength. Less than that.
For 250 million people.
Exactly. And the United Nations ratio is 1 to 400. Yes. So if you compare these two figures, we need to withdraw these people. And our politicians, unfortunately, are not taking our security very serious. I'm sure the IG also will be under pressure to return those people. That's why we are not hearing anything again. They have to withdraw those policemen to help boost our security. Let them suffer what we are suffering. I don't move with any, I'm sure none of us, even the general.
No, don't say that on national TV. No, don't say that for your own security. Don't say that. Your closing thoughts. We're rounding up to build on what they've said.
No. Actually, the good thing about it is that I know that concerted efforts are being made to ensure that the security forces and the Nigerian people are better informed and equipped to deal with the security challenges that have been. So the thing is that let's give them that kind of benefit of doubt and continue to support and cooperate with them. For instance, this issue, the sad incidents in Gusau, I know that they are not resting on their hours, and I had meaningful conversation with some people, and I know that they are doing the best they could, but they need the support of the people. They need the cooperation. They need the understanding. We should stop politicizing security issues in this country and let us give it the seriousness that it deserves. It is not necessarily material, but it could be moral support to the security forces. And of course, the government owes it a point of duty to ensure that the galvanization of all national resources to ensure that Nigeria is better secure. But most importantly, the key thing is our policing system. We neglected it, and now we are paying dearly for it.
Okay, Brigadier General Kuka Sheka, thank you very much. Well, I just want to throw this in before we thank our guests. You've talked about KPIs for, say, the man who is in the village or the woman who is in the village in any part of the country want to be able to go to your farm, cultivate your crops, and then come back home safely. You want to be able to visit the next village and return safely. You want to go to school and so on and so forth. But also for the security personnel themselves, there's also the need for KPI and security sector accountability. 5 years ago, how many security personnel did we lose? Last year, how many security personnel did we lose? This year, how many have we lost? Are the numbers rising or the numbers declining? What are the factors in this? If the numbers are escalating, then there is a crisis. If the numbers are diminishing, all well and good.
And so the dead have not been replaced.
Of course, because what does it cost to train and equip a security personnel to be on duty for the protection of the rest of us who are going about our normal business? So I think that KPI also should also be available. Jubai,
yes,
let's thank our guests.
Yes, we have to thank Barrister Mike Ejiafo, former Director, Department of State Services. As usual, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Dr. Kabir Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. He's not a politician, he's a security risk expert. Thank you so much for your input to the conversation.
Thank you, you're 100%.
Yes, Chief Superintendent of Corps, Babawale Afolabi, National Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. We thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka Usman, former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army and consultant to the Army Resource Center, Abuja. As always, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
Foreign news is next.
French President Emmanuel Macron says his country will withdraw its ambassador and troops from Niger in the wake of the July coup that overthrew democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. In a television address, the president said the military cooperation was over and that 1,500 French troops stationed in the country would withdraw in the months and weeks to come, with a full pullout by the end of the year. France's exit comes after weeks of pressure from the military and popular demonstrations. Thousands of people have protested in recent weeks in the capital, Niamey, including outside a military base housing French soldiers. Niger's new rulers, who had been demanding France's exit after Macron refused to recognize the July 26 coup, welcomed the French president's announcement, describing it as a historic moment which speaks to the determination and the will of the Nigerian people. The development comes as France's troops have also been asked to leave its former colonies, Mali and Burkina Faso.
For us on Good Morning Nigeria today, thank you for joining us. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, look after yourselves. Kingsley Sadalo.
And I am Juma Yusuf. Do have a great day.